In 2007, in the small town of Redford, Michigan, life went on as usual. With a population of just over 3,000, everyone knew each other. Main Street had old buildings that had stood for generations, and at the center of town was St. Paul's Church, where residents gathered every Sunday to catch up and socialize. Caroline Winters, a 55-year-old widow, had lived in Redford her entire life. Her cozy old house was on the outskirts of town, near the woods. Caroline was a well-respected member of the community, even after her husband's tragic death in an accident 5 years earlier. She rarely left town, spending most of her time at home, tending to her garden and reading. Caroline was known for keeping the town's secrets but never revealing them. Redford was a town overshadowed by its past, where rumors and untold stories lingered, creating an underlying tension. This tension came to a head one August day in 2007, when a shocking event rocked the town. 19-year-old Logan Miller was found dead near the woods by Caroline's home. His body was discovered by a passerby walking his dog. The circumstances were strange and frightening. Logan's body had been covered with leaves and branches, as if someone had tried to hide it. There were signs of strangulation on his neck and defensive cuts on his arms, suggesting he had fought back. When Sheriff Michael Walker arrived at the scene, he knew this wasn't going to be a typical investigation. Redford had rarely seen such crimes. Walker, a strong-willed man committed to keeping peace in his town, called in help from Detective Jonathan Reeves, an old colleague from their days at the Detroit Police Department. Reeves was known for solving complex cases. When Reeves arrived in Redford, he immediately started his investigation by examining the crime scene and talking to witnesses. Caroline's house, just a few hundred meters from where the body was found, caught his attention right away. He sensed that behind the town's friendly faces, dark secrets were waiting to be uncovered. Rumors spread quickly through Redford. In cafes, gas stations, and stores, everyone was talking about Logan's death. Some claimed to have seen him with an unknown woman the night before. Others speculated he was involved in something dangerous. But one thing was clear: Logan's death had the entire town on edge. Caroline was deeply disturbed by Logan's death. She had known him since he was a boy and couldn't imagine anyone wanting to hurt him. But as much as she was saddened, she had a sinking feeling that this tragedy would mark the end of her peaceful life in Redford. As Reeves dug deeper, he became more convinced that something sinister lurked in Redford. With each interview, he got closer to uncovering what the town had been hiding. Meanwhile, Sheriff Walker, a lifelong resident of Redford, struggled with the idea that one of his neighbors could be a murderer. It filled him with both anger and despair. Reeves meticulously examined the crime scene. The wooded area where Logan's body was found was a maze of trails that only longtime residents knew about. The ground showed signs of a struggle: broken branches, blood droplets, and dents in the earth confirmed that the murder had taken place in the woods. Logan had been strangled with a rope or cord, and the bruises and cuts on his body showed he had fought hard to defend himself. Reeves knew this was not a random act. It was a deliberate and brutal murder. The medical examiner determined that Logan had died around midnight, narrowing down the list of suspects. But in a small town like Redford, where everyone knew each other, it wasn't easy to believe that anyone could commit such a violent act. Reeves started by questioning Caroline Winters. Her house was too close to the crime scene to ignore. While she was shocked by Logan's death, Reeves noticed something odd about her behavior. She seemed too calm, almost distant, which made Reeves suspicious, though he wasn't ready to draw any conclusions yet. As the investigation continued, Margaret Maggie Winters, Caroline's daughter, arrived in Redford the day after Logan's death. Maggie was worried that her mother might be involved but didn't want to openly accuse her. She knew Caroline had been friendly with Logan, but she never imagined it could end in tragedy. Reeves also turned his attention to Bobby Smith, a local resident with a troubled past. Bobby had a history of run-ins with the law and a reputation for getting into fights, making him a potential suspect. He lived alone on the edge of town, keeping to himself, which only made him seem more suspicious. As Reeves pieced together the puzzle, the town remained in a state of fear. People avoided going out at night, locking their doors and windows, hoping that the killer would be caught soon. Reeves knew he needed to solve the case quickly to restore peace to this small, shaken town. Detective Jonathan Reeves knew he was dealing with something far darker than any case he'd encountered before. The murder of Logan Miller in the small town of Redford was a crime that felt entirely out of place. Redford, a town where everyone knew everyone, was the last place one would expect such brutality. But Reeves couldn't ignore the grim reality. His task was clear: uncover who among the town's residents could be capable of taking the life of the young man. The first days of the investigation were particularly challenging. The shock of the murder left the community on edge, and no one was eager to cooperate with the police. Despite this, Reeves methodically interviewed anyone who might have had contact with Logan, starting with those closest to Caroline Winter, the woman whose house Logan frequently visited. She denied knowing anything suspicious that night, but her guarded demeanor left Reeves suspicious. Caroline had claimed that Logan often came over to help with chores, and though there was no romantic relationship, Reeves wasn't convinced she was being entirely truthful. During an interrogation at the police station, Reeves focused on her every movement, watching for signs of discomfort or hidden guilt. Caroline maintained her composure, but the detective sensed there was something deeper beneath her calm exterior. A a conflict she wasn't willing to reveal. As Reeves focused on Caroline, Sheriff Michael Walker continued questioning other townspeople, relying on his extensive local knowledge. Walker uncovered troubling details about Logan's recent behavior. He'd become distant from his old friends, stayed out late, and had begun spending time with a more dangerous crowd. The name Bobby Smith kept coming up. Smith had a reputation for trouble, with a history of petty crime and fights, but he always managed to avoid serious consequences. Lately, Smith had been even more elusive, avoiding people and acting strangely. Walker and Reeves agreed that Bobby Smith needed closer scrutiny, especially after Walker learned about a phone call Logan had made to a mysterious number just hours before his death. The number, registered to Smith, raised even more red flags. With Smith now a prime suspect, the detectives decided to search his home, hoping to find anything that could tie him to the murder. Meanwhile, Reeves turned his attention to Margaret Maggie Winters, Caroline's daughter. Although Maggie didn't seem suspicious, Reeves knew that anyone connected to Logan's life needed to be thoroughly questioned. Maggie, concerned about her mother's well-being, expressed her belief that Caroline couldn't possibly be involved in such a crime. She admitted knowing about Logan's visits but saw nothing out of the ordinary in their relationship. Nevertheless, her insistence on her mother's innocence only made Reeves more determined to dig deeper. With each new piece of information, the detective pieced together a troubling picture. Logan Miller had been involved with people far more dangerous than anyone in Redford could have imagined. The next step was uncover the secrets Bobby Smith was hiding, and, in doing so, reveal the truth behind Logan's death. The discovery of George Evans' name in Logan's phone records introduced a new layer of intrigue into the case. Detective Reeves immediately flagged Evans as a person of interest and began to dig into his background. George, having moved to Redford only a year prior, had flown under the radar, rarely engaging with the close-knit community. His reclusive nature and Logan's recent communications with him piqued Reeves' suspicion. Reeves ordered a background check on Evans, uncovering a trail of financial troubles and a few minor run-ins with the law, though nothing that directly tied him to violence. However, his sudden and frequent contact with Logan in the weeks leading up to the murder suggested that Evans might know more than he was letting on. Reeves arranged for an informal visit to Evans' modest home on the outskirts of town. Upon arriving, Reeves immediately noticed the tension in Evans' demeanor. George was polite, though visibly anxious, which Reeves attributed to either nerves or guilt. Evans claimed he barely knew Logan, saying they had only spoken a few times about mundane matters like fixing Logan's car. But when Reeves pressed further, asking about specific dates of phone calls, Evans stumbled over his words. The detective's trained eye caught this and filed it away for later. He left Evans' house with a sense that George was hiding something important. Back at the station, Sheriff Walker continued pursuing leads. His interviews with Logan's acquaintances revealed a pattern. Logan had changed drastically in the months leading up to his death. Once the easygoing, well-liked guy around town, he had become secretive, moody, and prone to disappearing for long stretches. It was clear to Walker that Logan had gotten mixed up in something deeper than the locals knew. The forensic team, meanwhile, made another breakthrough. They found traces of soil on Logan's shoes that didn't match the forest where his body was found. This discovery opened up the possibility that Logan had been killed elsewhere and his body dumped in the woods. Reeves' suspicion that someone was framing Bobby Smith seemed more plausible with this new evidence. Caroline Winters' odd behavior continued to fuel rumors. The normally friendly woman had become withdrawn, refusing to speak to anyone outside her immediate circle. Even her daughter Maggie seemed to distance herself. The combination of Caroline's past relationship with Logan and her evasive behavior made Havier a person of interest once again. Reeves couldn't shake the feeling that there was a connection between Caroline and George Evans, even though there was no immediate evidence to suggest it. Detective Reeves and Sheriff Walker decided to play their next card. They brought Bobby Smith in for a final interrogation. This time, they confronted him with the forensic evidence and the lack of physical proof tying him to the scene of the crime. Bobby, seeing the cracks in the case against him, finally started talking. He admitted he had a run-in with Logan a few days before his death, but insisted it was over a personal matter unrelated to the murder. Bobby's confession took a surprising turn when he mentioned seeing Logan meet with a man near the edge of town, a man who matched George Evans' description. With Bobby's statement in hand, Reeves now had a plausible link between Evans and Logan. It was becoming clear that George Evans wasn't just a reclusive newcomer. He had been quietly inserting himself into Logan's life in the weeks before the murder. But the motive still eluded Reeves. The investigation was far from over, but the threads were starting to come together. Reeves now had to uncover how George Evans, Caroline Winters, and Bobby Smith were all connected to the crime that had rocked the small town of Redford. The killer was out there, and Reeves was closer than ever to unraveling the mystery. As Detective Reeves continued to interrogate George Evans, he couldn't shake the feeling that the suspect was hiding a key part of the puzzle. Evans' nervous demeanor and inconsistent responses only fueled the detective's suspicions. But with no concrete evidence linking Evans to Logan's murder, Reeves knew he needed to tread carefully. Meanwhile, Sheriff Walker pursued a different angle. He focused on Logan Miller's potential involvement in criminal activity, hoping that uncovering more about Logan's recent behavior might provide a bright. Walker knew that Reeves' investigation into George Evans' shady past could be crucial. but he also believed that Logan's own actions in the weeks leading up to his death held valuable clues. Walker started by interviewing people who knew Logan, both friends and acquaintances, as well as those who might have had a grudge against him. He learned that Logan had been acting secretive and suspicious before his death, spending late nights in unfamiliar places and meeting with people who were not part of his usual circle. Rumors circulated that Logan was in deep financial trouble and had borrowed money from dangerous sources. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, suggesting that Logan may have been involved in a criminal network, possibly connected to George Evans. Reeves, now armed with information about Evans' criminal past, took a more aggressive approach in his second interrogation. He laid out the facts: Evans' involvement in past violent crimes, his financial struggles, and his suspicious relationship with Logan. Evans, visibly rattled, tried to maintain his innocence, insisting that his past had nothing to do with Logan's murder. But Reeves noticed a shift in his behavior. Evans was no longer as composed as he had been in the initial questioning. As the pressure mounted, Evans began to crack. He admitted that he had met Logan several times, but only to discuss business. However, when Reeves brought up Logan's recent financial troubles and hinted that Evans might have been involved in illegal dealings with him, Evans became defensive. His denial grew weaker with every passing minute. While Reeves was grilling Evans, Sheriff Walker made a startling discovery. A local moneylender, who had a reputation for working with dangerous clientele, revealed that Logan had indeed borrowed a large sum of money shortly before his death. The loan was supposed to be paid back within a month, but Logan had missed the deadline. The moneylender also mentioned seeing Logan with a man who fit George Evans' description, raising even more suspicion about Evans' role in the case. With this new information, Reeves and Walker began to piece together a theory. Logan, desperate for money, had borrowed from a dangerous source and got involved in something much larger than he could handle. George Evans, with his criminal background, may have been either an enforcer or an accomplice in the shady dealings. The possibility that Logan had crossed the wrong people now seemed more plausible. However, one crucial question remained unanswered. Who had actually killed Logan? Was it Evans trying to cover up a failed business deal, or was there another player involved in this dangerous game? The investigation was reaching a boiling point, and Detective Reeves knew that time was running out. He needed to find the missing link that would either incriminate George Evans or lead him to the real killer before the town of Redford completely lost its sense of safety. The investigation into Logan Miller's murder took a significant turn when Walker discovered Logan's involvement in illegal drug transactions. His search for connections between Logan and local drug dealers revealed a debt Logan owed to a small-time dealer connected to George Evans. This discovery shifted the focus of the investigation, leading detectives Reeves and Walker to theorize that Logan had become entangled in Evans' criminal schemes. When Logan couldn't repay his debt, he was killed to silence him. Detective Reeves, still puzzled by Caroline Winter's potential involvement, brought her in for further questioning. Caroline admitted that she was aware Logan had problems but dismissed them as typical youthful mistakes. She confessed that Logan had sought her advice on multiple occasions but downplayed the severity of his situation. Despite her admissions, Reeves couldn't yet determine her exact role in the case. Evans emerged as a central figure, deeply involved in criminal activities, but Reeves still needed to understand how Caroline fit into the picture. To uncover the truth, he arranged a confrontation between Evans and Caroline. The meeting revealed cracks in their stories, with Evans accusing Caroline of blackmailing him and pushing him to kill Logan. Caroline vehemently denied these claims, asserting that Evans was trying to deflect blame. Reeves, sensing he was close to solving the case, ordered further forensic analysis. Meanwhile, Walker found a witness who had seen Logan with someone resembling Evans on the night of the murder. This key testimony, combined with the accumulated evidence, led Reeves to conclude that Evans was the mastermind behind Logan's murder, committed to cover up his criminal activities. Evans was arrested, and after intense questioning, he confessed to the murder. With Evans in custody, the case was closed, and the city of Redford could finally breathe a sigh of relief. However, the investigation left a lasting impact on the community. Caroline, though not directly implicated in the murder, was ostracized by society, forcing her to leave town. Her daughter Maggie briefly returned to support her, but soon realized that they both needed a fresh start away from Redford. Sheriff Walker, reflecting on the case, recognized that the warning signs leading up to the murder had been missed. Determined to prevent future tragedies, he initiated community meetings to strengthen the bond between the police and the public. Detective Reeves, though satisfied with solving the case, was haunted by how this singular murder had altered the fabric of the town. Redford slowly returned to normal, but the memory of Logan Miller's murder served as a reminder that even in the quietest places, darkness could surface at any moment. The town, now more united, prepared itself for whatever challenges the future might bring. Stay glued to this channel for more crime stories. Until next time, True Crime Pulse, thank you.